She just
A hankering?
she likes spending money.
Okay.
She likes
Name one that
and
doesn't.
not so much always on herself, but mainly on herself. But she will spend it on anybody and everybody.
Well, then she can justify spending.
Yeah,
it on
absolutely.
herself.
Yeah, I'll get 2 pair of sneakers, and like, okay.
Yeah, I'm about to cut my wife.
Yeah, I spent a gazillion dollars, but I bought you two pair of
Yep.
30, $50 sneakers, and okay, I'm very thankful.
I'm about to cut my wife loose at home at Rooms to Go. That's going to be a bad day in my life.
Oh God, and you're sure about doing that?
Well, once we get all the measurements,
Hey, you got to have some furniture.
to have them deliver it up there is worth the.
Oh, I'll tell you.
And bring it in the house and set it up where you
Look at
want.
this little guy here, Jeff. This little guy's fast.
You no kidding.
Dang.
Touchdown!
Man, you got some speed, stud.
The little bitty guy?
Yeah. You watch him take off, man. He can run.
And I'll turn the camera around.
Man, he looked like a little blur going across the field.
He reminds me of me in my youth.
I can play linebacker.
Yeah, Jeff was pretty quick, little squirt back in the day.
I was too, because I was avoiding getting my butt kicked by 3 older brothers.
That's what you need. You need some older siblings to beat the.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome in. It's another edition of Straight Up with Sturg and the Bostic Brothers. We're live here from Lakeside Lodge in Clemson, and we're going to be getting you ready for tomorrow's noon matchup between the number 4 ranked Florida State Seminoles, 3-0, at Clemson, 2-1. And here's my good buddy Joe Bostic, my good buddy Jeff Bostic, and guys, this is what Clemson football is all about. Tomorrow is one of the biggest games in the Valley that I can remember in 5, 6, 7 years.
I agree. It's going to be a big one. Florida State, and this is what this should be what's going. This should have been going on the last 10, 15 years. Clemson and Florida State. Clemson's won 7 in a row. I don't know how many Florida State may have won earlier before that, but it's been a pretty dominated by Clemson here lately. But over the years, except for probably the first 10, 15 years of Bobby Bowden, I'd say probably Clemson's got a little better edge of it now. But those first 15 years, Bobby Bowden just dominated.
Well, it's not even that. It is a series that Florida State leads 20-15. But correct me if I'm wrong. One of your freshmen, maybe your sophomore year, Florida State came in here and ran Clemson out of Death Valley one time. I believe it was 45-7.
40. That was my freshman year,
Okay.
and then we went to Tallahassee the next year. Bobby Bowden's first year, Jeff was on the team, and we beat them 15-12. I think was the score, and the field goal kickers were ruling that night.
Very much so. Jeff, glad to have you here as well because, one of the things that Clemson is going to have to do tomorrow is on the offensive line is, number one, create some separation for Will Shifley and Phil Maffa, but most importantly is give Cade Klubnik some time to throw so he can settle in and not make a mistake like he has at the beginning part of the season.
Well, the only way you get game experience is being thrown out there, and for Klubnik, I mean, he is obviously a very high recruited individual. That doesn't provide you with game time speed, the decisions, how fast the game is, how big the game is, and it's a process of learning how to cope with it and how to deal with it and how to be successful with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're learning here at Clemson, generational quarterbacks don't come around all that often, and to have 2 of them back-to-back with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Oh, yeah, go look in Tuscaloosa. You've had Tua and Bryce Young and all these guys. Now that they don't have an experienced quarterback, both teams are struggling, and that's why it's a big day tomorrow for the Clemson Tigers as well as Alabama and some other teams out there.
Absolutely. I heard a guy yesterday said that that of all the starting 32 quarterbacks in the league, 4 of those, maybe it's 4 or 6, were from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So the Crimson Tide over the years was really kind of a didn't have quarterbacks. Richard Todd, Joe Namath, but really weren't a real wasn't a real highly quarterback type place. But boy, the last 10, 15 years, they have really put out some top quality quarterbacks.
Well, people like to win. As Dabo Swinney says, the fun's in the winning. And I think Jordan Travis comes in tomorrow, which I'm telling you, I think he's a little bit more banged up than people are willing to let on. He was really favoring that right shoulder up at Boston College last week. He does come into game to protect things as Florida State did look vulnerable. It was the red bandana game up at Boston College, but he got hit again, and he went back and held that shoulder. So if I'm Wes Goodwin, I am dialing up pressure on Rudolph just to see how banged up he is.
Yeah, he'd be a little more banged up when the game would be over with if I were the defensive coach at Clemson. That's for sure.
So, again, it's a series, Clemson and Florida State. The Tigers have won 7 of the past 7 meetings. You think of the last time the Tigers lost, it was in Tallahassee, and it was a game they lost in overtime. They fumbled. They gave it away. And, boy, did you ever think you'd see Clemson take 7 in a row from Florida State?
That was the Jameis Winston. I think he got up in some chair and hollered something obscene. And
they sat him.
Yeah, they sat him down for a week, and Clemson played a heck of a game. It was down in Tallahassee, and I think their field goal kicker had to kick a field goal in overtime to win the game.
Well, remember Winston showed up out on the field dressed up, and Jimbo Fisher was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, get back out. Get out of here.
All right, so, Jeff, I want your opinion on this. Florida State fans have been griping. Why? Because they only get 500 tickets down low in the lower part as compared to 1,300 in years past. I'm sorry, it's a new trend in college football where they're trying to give the opponents as few of the bottom seats as they can. Why? Because you can charge your own people more for those seats. So they've been griping online all week long about, Clemson's scared of Florida State. Well, guess what? I think it was 2 years ago when Clemson's football team loads the buses on their way to the stadium and Florida State waved the white flag before kickoff, and they never play. So if I'm a Florida State fan coming in tomorrow, remember a couple of years ago that they chickened out before the game even was played.
Well, whoever orchestrates this stuff should have their head examined. I mean, this has been a great rivalry. Have there been some weird things that have happened over the course of the last 25, 30 years? Yeah, plenty of them. Great coaches, great players, weird players, strange things that happened during the game that turned the game around. I mean, it's been a great matchup.
Still one of the most hurtful moments. I came up from the University of Alabama with the girlfriend for that Florida State game in the rain when Bobby Bowden makes one of the gutsiest calls I've ever seen in college football, and Leroy Butler's on his way down the sideline, and that stadium was primed, had stopped them, were getting the ball back, going to go down the field, kick the field goal. I think that's as silent as I've ever heard Death Valley or Georgia Tech lost a few years later.
Yeah, I was still playing. Jeff and I were still playing, so I didn't get a chance to watch that one in person. And I remember we had gone on a road trip somewhere, and I saw just a little bit of the game. And yeah, that was a heartbreaker. And and Danny, as Danny Ford would usually do, he came back the next year, played in Tallahassee, and beat them. So
I remember Terry Allen on a 73-yard touchdown run, Wayne Simmons on a 73-yard interception, and it was just one of those games.
They beat them pretty handily.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad, no doubt. Well, it's sometimes hard to look forward if you don't take a look back. And last weekend, Joe, we said what we were looking for was clean and concise football with some energy and fewer mistakes. I think you got that in the first half as the Tigers went out to a 34-0 lead. They do come out a little lackadaisical after halftime, but 48-14 defense is now number 8 in the country.
Wow. Well, that's the most concerning thing to me is that consistency thing. I know when Jeff and I were playing here, Danny Ford, I mean, he just demanded, I don't care if we're up 30 points. I don't care if we're down 30 points. You play hard, and you're trying to, kick this other guy around and push him around and continue to do so, make them want to give up. And that's disappointing that we don't see that. I think the first 2 times we had the ball in the second half, we had 3 and outs, and it's just, just play the whole friggin' game. If there's numbers on the clock other than 3 zeros in a row, go out there and just try to pulverize the guy you're against.
Now, one of the things this weekend is, Jeff, I know you've got a really interesting story about how you ended up at Clemson. You get the phone call, your parents do, you're out running. Next thing you know, you're on your way to Clemson and in practice that afternoon. But this is a huge game tomorrow for recruiting purposes. Clemson is one of the few schools that doesn't go out there and throw blanket offers. You know what I mean? They've only offered 40 guys for the upcoming class. 14 of those are going to be here on campus tomorrow. So, that's a chance for Tiger fans to step up even further at noon and show these guys this is where you want to be the following 4 years.
Well, I had some experience watching my brother when he was being recruited. He was a can't miss. I was a can't make. and Ed Emery, God rest his soul, he used to come to our house seemingly during Joe's senior year and, later after the New Year's had turned over. But Joe, I thought, was going to go to NC State. And out of the selection thing, he had, I think, a NC State, and he threw the NC and put the Clemson hat on, and the rest is history.
Well, of course, Bo Ryan would have been a good guy to play for, but he was out the door as soon as that LSU job, and unfortunately never got to coach a game there at LSU.
Yeah, and I'd have been getting whooped by Clemson.
By Clemson, you'd really have a black eye at this point, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So, again, this is a historical game for the Tigers in the fact that Clemson has not started 0-2 in ACC play since 2010. And for people that remember, that was the year Kyle Parker was quarterback, and it ended in Charlotte in a loss to South Florida in the Meineke Car Care Bowl, and they finished 6-7.
Yep.
That is why this is a huge home game tomorrow, because number 2, what we do in life is when something reaches a point that we don't want to see them go any further, that's when we start trying to tear them down. And nationally, it's happening to Clemson, it's happening to Alabama, and you know what? You want to win and keep everything in front of you tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's in play tomorrow. Not only the game, but the transfer portal. I mean, I guarantee you there's a ton of people that are looking at this because there's 2 guys on that field that have done it diametrically opposite of one another. Norvell has come in and brought in a bunch of transfers. For whatever reason, Dabo seems to not really care about that way of going. So you're going to see 2 teams converge, and whichever way it comes out, you're going to have a lot of commentary. If the Florida State wins, okay, Norvell had the right thoughts. When's Dabo going to get it, and vice versa. But it's.
Well, in the media these days, we try to create something bigger than it actually is. It's called clickbait, But everybody talking about this is a legacy game for Dabo Swinney. I'm sorry. People need to back off the ledge and think this is a coach that even on his bad years recently has won 10 and 11 games. So, yes, it's tomorrow is a difference in styles, the transfer portal versus homegrown kids, if you will. But let's take a little step back. One football game is not that important when it comes to the legacy of a coach.
No, I think Dabo has got his own legacy fully constructed. They're putting the cast around the cement. I mean, it's there. What Dabo Swinney has been able to do here at Clemson is nothing short of miraculous. And he has taken this program to a level that it's very, very infrequently seen.
Yeah, there's 2 national championships that'll be in that stadium tomorrow, and unfortunately for Florida State, their coach has 0 of them. Now, Mike Norvell may win 10 national championships in a row. I doubt it, but who knows? But right now, Dabo Swinney has done it twice, and he's the only guy in that stadium that's going to be able to make that claim.
I think one of the reasons that people like taking shots at Dabo Swinney out there in the media, nationally, if you will, is the simple fact he's been right on multiple things, talking about how much college football is changing. It's not, oh, can you believe Dabo Swinney made that comment when he's making $9 million a year? Yes, he made the comment, and it turns out two years later he was exactly right. It's like a newspaper getting something wrong on a story. It might be on the front page, but the retraction's going to be on page 12.
Yeah, he offers his opinion in a lot of different things. Probably be better if he kind of took a pass at a lot of stuff. NIL, the transfer portal, all kind of stuff. The stuff he got into with Ohio State the one year we played him and had him ranked 11th or whatever. It's just that, and he's won the national championships. He's a very outwardly devout Christian. I think that plays into it. I think there's just a lot of stuff that I don't think people dislike Dabo that much, but I think they allow him to rub him a little wrong. And I think that everybody likes to gig him whenever things are not looking like they're real positive.
Well, I think he's a lightning rod, but number two, I think he's smart as a coach when he can take the heat, take it off the team and bring him on himself. He's proven that method works, and just let the players kind of go on and do their thing. And if anybody's going to take their shots at Clemson, that's fine. They're going to take them at me.
Well, I think Dabo has always been one of those head coaches that protects his players, really tries to limit the amount of media exposure that they have so we don't have any locker room material coming out
That's
of
right.
there. Or, I think he plays it very close to the close to the cuff.
Well, I mean, you saw that earlier this year in the offseason, back about June, some younger sophomore player went and put some pictures up on Instagram or something from inside the locker room, and it wasn't appropriate. Guess what? That kid's not playing for Clemson University anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jeff played for a guy, Joe Gibbs, who was the master. I mean, he would I've heard Jeff and I've heard other Redskins say, he just did not tolerate any negative commentary about anybody they were playing, their organization, the team, the players, anybody.
You couldn't talk about your own teammates. That would get you a plane ticket out of Washington in a hurry, too.
Can you imagine that today? I mean, shoot, Shipley had a little bit of a flare-up with C.J. Spiller this past weekend, and I think it was just emotion. Shipley, he wanted to get the ball in the end zone. He's a competitor. But, you want to get people upset with you. Start talking through the media to one of your players or one of your coaches, and guess what? You won't be playing for very long.
And I tell you what, Joe Gibbs is one of the best men I've ever met in my life, not just for football. He is the total package. And he would lay down the rules at the start of training camp. He wouldn't go over them again, but he never forgot them. And if you broke a rule, you're going to pay a supreme price.
Oh, shoot. That kind of sounds like my parents. I'm going to give you just enough rope to hang yourself. You know what I mean? So
I think Joe and I can relate to that, too.
All right.
We probably still got scars
Oh,
on
I
our
know
head.
I got rope burn. I try to convince people it was from shaving. No, it was from mom and dad back in the day. But talking about next level, that's Lakeside Lodge here in Clemson. I mean, tonight just has a little bit different feel to it. It was Florida Atlantic in an 8 p.m. kickoff last week. I got a good feeling there's a portion of Clemson that will not go to sleep on their way to that noon kickoff in Death Valley tomorrow. But, some of the greatest shirts that you're going to find is I get to bring this out. Listen, you can come by Lakeside Lodge and get one of these for Lakeside Lodge or Traditions on the Lake. The orange one's really, really cool. Joe picked up some last week. We'll also have the Dave Landio Band from Charleston they'll be playing about 10 after 8. Listen, it's one of the best bands, if not the best band we have all year. But, the food here is fantastic. The atmosphere is fantastic. And one of the best things, you can see Death Valley right across Lake Hartwell.
And I'll tell you what, the weather is absolutely, this is perfect. You're starting to get that little bit of just a slight little bit of feeling fall. I mean, so every week before it's been so hot, but boys, it is really feeling good. The kids are out here playing on the football field, and it's just a beautiful place.
One of them's got some speed over there.
yeah.
We were noticing right before
Yeah, that
we
little
came
guy
on.
with the hat, little speed racer.
No, last night when I was walking the dogs, it was just about time to put a sweatshirt on. So it's going to be too warm for sweatshirt Dabo tomorrow, but when Dabo starts breaking out the sweatshirts, watch out. It's time to play football. Also, please check out the website, straightupsports.net. Bob Gillespie, he used to be the columnist for the state newspaper, Orangeburg Times Democrat, just a South Carolina legend. He's lighting it up. Cliff can tell you he's done articles on our mutual friend Rick Sanford, not to mention South Carolina State head coach who's retiring, Buddy Pugh, and now he's got one coming up on the Scott family, Jeff Scott and all. So go check out that. If you're a Gamecock watching for a disaster, then Willie T. Smith, the legendary Greenville and even Greensboro record columnist, he's got South Carolina, and I'll be at Furman tomorrow for a big game as they open up the SoCon at 1 p.m. versus Mercer. But a little bit more for you to find out about Lakeside Lodge and our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the ACC, the top 25, and in the final segment, a lot closer look at Florida State.
More than football.
Let's all come together to be a bridge builder through this great game to change the lives of the people in the state of South Carolina.
Together, we can be a voice to help educate, encourage, and empower excellence in our youth and community.
Join the movement and help support all that the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame is doing to embrace this mission of celebrating, recognizing, and encouraging excellence.
I'm here at one of my favorite places in Greenville. That's Tip It Back Sports Grill, 215 Pelham Road here in the Commons at Pelham. And listen, there's a lot going on at Tip It Back here during the week. First of all, there's happy hour, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 p.m. There's great food. They're open at noon for lunch. But Mondays, you can enjoy live trivia at 7 p.m., then Monday Night Football. On Thursdays, it's football and then karaoke. On Friday night, some of the best live entertainment in the upstate. And then Saturday, it's football all day and finishes off with karaoke. And then Sunday, it's NFL football. And if you're a Steelers fan, this is your spot. It's a home for the Steelers. They're on the broadcast here in the bar all day long. That's Tip It Back Sports Grill. Check them out. It'll be your home for college football. Just like the Bostics are legends, so is Wedgie's Pizza here in Greenville. When you've been in business for 34 years, you can make that claim. You know, pizza and football go together, and it's not just about the pies here at Wedgie's. There's fantastic cheesesteaks and other subs, plus lasagna, chicken tenders, and a whole lot more. Now, you can find the entire menu at wedgiesonline.com or simply give the store a call, 292-3410. That's legendary. That's Wedgie's Pizza here in Greenville. Welcome back in. We're live at Lakeside Lodge, straight up with Sturg and the Bostic brothers. We're getting you ready for that big noon kickoff. Number 4, Florida State, 3-0 on the season. Clemson, 2-1. And again, you can find that game on ABC. Guys, right now, about to kick off in the ACC. NC State, 2-1 at Virginia. And you know, I just hate this, but I got the feeling that Tony Elliott's going to end up being a victim of terrible circumstances. it just, the way they lost to James Madison, being up 2 touchdowns, and then JMU coming back and winning by 1, and the whole, the murders that took place last year. That's a 2-year, 3-year rebuild, like you said, but unfortunately in this world, you don't get that much time.
Well, what happened to those guys, too, is that transfer portal. Yeah, you can get well with the transfer portal. You can get real unwell with the transfer portal, too, when you start losing a bunch of guys. And I think Virginia lost a lot more than they could bring in. So, yeah, I feel for Tony. I mean, Virginia's always been kind of a weak sister in the ACC, and it's just different. I don't know in this basketball school, but I feel for Tony. He deserves better than what he's
He
been
does,
able to do.
and to me, that kind of job right now probably somebody a lot more charismatic. You know what I mean? That can go out there every week and win in front of the microphone. Listen, that's not Tony Elliott still. He's very cerebral, and you were talking about Miller. He's now at NC State. The amount of I don't mind all the transferring, but it's like going from one team in the league to the other one. That to me is when you should be sitting out a year. Yeah. All right, noon tomorrow, game Clemson fans need to pay attention to a little bit, but you need to be loud in the Valley, is Army 2-1 at Syracuse. Now, number one, you may not think so, but that's a little bit of a rivalry, as they're both from sort of upstate New York. Number two, Army thinks Syracuse has just dodged them for generations, if you will. Syracuse off to a 3-0 start. We know Dino Babers can get them started. Can they finish? But that's a place Clemson goes to next weekend up at Syracuse.
I used to do the Big East Conference for ESPN with my old buddy Dave Sims, and I bet you we did 8 or 10 games from Syracuse, and that was one of the most enjoyable places. That dome was so loud, and they had some great football teams in the mid 90s and late 90s.
I think Clemson can remember a trip to Jacksonville where I think Donovan McNabb just threw another touchdown pass.
Yeah, they had great players, and they had a guy play for the Indianapolis Colts, Dwight Freeney. I mean, he was a heck of a pass rusher, both college and pro.
When you did those games in Syracuse, did you get to go eat at Dinosaur Barbecue?
Yes, I did.
Is it as legit as they talk about?
It's as good as I had barbecue before we got here tonight. It's every bit as good as Southern barbecue.
That's the one place I have not been to that I might, just for the Dinosaur Barbecue.
Well, I'm not going to tell you who owns that place then.
Oh, Bostic Brothers. No.
No. George Soros.
Oh, God. They might not be eating there too much. So, all right.
Boy, his stomach just went. I can hear it growling now.
I was in there eating. And
I just got a little sick in my stomach.
This guy told me, he said, yeah, our owner. And he said, our owner. And he kept saying, I said, well, who is your owner? And I'd already eaten my last little bit of food. And he said, George Soros. And I was like,
everything just got sour.
I said, did you really
mouth.
have to tell me that? I said, man.
All right.
This barbecue just doesn't taste quite as good as I thought it did.
Noon tomorrow, Virginia Tech 1-2 at Marshall 2-0. Virginia Tech, again, bad loss last week. Lost to Purdue out of the Big Ten with a first-year head coach. If Marshall beats them in Huntington tomorrow, what is Pry going to do? Because somebody in the state of Virginia is going to have to step up, and I can't believe it's going to be James Madison in the long run. But if you get Virginia Tech at 1-3 this year, I'm telling you, there's a guy up there that made a move last year I'm not too sure about. But that was Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina to Liberty. Oh, my God, did you see the change in Coastal Carolina last night? They were terrible as compared. If I'm Virginia Tech, I start looking at Jamie Chadwell at Liberty because I don't think this Brett Pry thing's going to work out.
Well, it's unfortunate. When Jeff and I were playing, we played Virginia Tech and beat them pretty bad.
In the mud one time.
And up in Blightsburg, and almost got in a big fight. Our trainers and stuff were throwing mud balls up into the stadium, and these cadets or whatever they had came out of the stands. And here we got like these little 120-pound trainers and managers, and there's thousands of people coming out of the stands. I said, you guys have got to be insane. You little twerps are sitting out here, and there's 50 guys to 1, Y'all gonna get killed. I mean, get in the dressing room and cut this stuff out.
Exactly. All right. 3:30 tomorrow. Boston College at Louisville. Again, Louisville wins again last week, 3-0. For whatever reason, it just didn't work with Scott Satterfield. But Jeff Brom, he's brought some calmness to a program that was a sea of insanity for 3 years.
Yeah, and he's got a great schedule. That's the main thing. He hadn't played a real good team, I don't think, yet.
Number 18 Duke, 3-0. I'm already on record for saying if Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M lose to Auburn tomorrow, watch it. Texas A&M's just going to go ahead and bite the money and get rid of Jimbo Fisher. I think they'll go after Duke head coach Mike Elko because he was defensive coordinator at A&M before he came to Duke. But Duke 3-0 at UConn 0-3. I'm telling you, Duke could end up about 6-7-0 before taking a loss. In number 18, and then Miami, number 20, right behind them, 3-0 at Temple. So if you notice, there's a lot of ranked teams in the ACC right now, and Clemson's not one of them.
Well, hopefully after Saturday's game, they put a performance on that is more Clemson-like, more like a Tiger, and they start turning the heads. Well, Clemson may have been in a small coma for a couple weeks, but here we're back.
I would love to compare it to Monty Python's The Holy Grail when he goes, not quite dead yet, so that could be Clemson football tomorrow. Who gets more bang for the buck than any other coach in the ACC, maybe not named Dabo Swinney?
I would say Dave Clawson of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons.
Have you looked up and realized they're 3-0 again this year?
I mean, that dude,
he is a very good coach.
Yes, he is. He knows.
He
how
does
to put it together.
more with less material probably than anybody.
Yeah, him and Elko.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, 8 p.m. tomorrow night, North Carolina, who's just quietly 3-0. They beat a really good Minnesota team last week, 31-13. They're at Pitt, who has Jerkovic, the former Boston College and Notre Dame quarterback. They didn't look too good, so something tells me Narduzzi will have Pitt ready to play, but North Carolina's just flat out got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's not raking up the yardage he did last year, but the one thing the Tar Heels are doing, they're winning.
Yeah, they got a much better, much improved running game, but I'm still scratching my head over Pat Narduzzi. I mean, that dude's always got tough-minded, hardcore, defensive, gritty teams, and it just doesn't. The quarterback's turning the ball over so much and making bad decisions that really it's really putting the defense in a heck of a bad position.
Well, tomorrow is one of those days in college football that I long for. First of all, opening weekend, because we've all been waiting 8 months since the end of the previous season. But it seems like week number 4 is either good out-of-conference matchups or the start of the conference season. Tomorrow, there are 6 top 25 matchups. That's the most in over a decade. Wow. So, you might want to get home after Clemson beats Florida State. There's some good action going on after that. But when you look at it nationally, what do y'all think of Colorado? They're now number 19, 3-0. They're at Oregon tomorrow, which is it's a 3:30 kickoff, but that's 12:30 out there at Oregon, number 10 Oregon. At some point, I think the talent's going to catch up with Colorado, but can you imagine if they went on the road and beat the University of Nike? Whether you like Deion Sanders as a person or not, but boy, he has taught that you can rebuild a program in 1 year.
I tell you what, he has done a tremendous job with Colorado, and one of my favorite Deion stories, we're playing them in the 91 playoffs, and he was playing for the Braves, and it was that's when we played, was in the October, and he was in the World Series, and he was playing for the Falcons, and then he'd go off and catch a private jet, and he'd be at the Braves game.
And played 2 in one day, a
Played
World
2 of them.
Series game and a NFL game.
And we're changing ends of the field from the third quarter till the fourth. And I went up to him, I said, Deion, I hope you have a better night than afternoon. He said, me too.
So, the thing is, do you realize Deion and Colorado are 3 of the most highly viewed games of 5 of the top 5 this year, including ESPN's all-time highest ranking for a late-night game last weekend, and that it was a really good Colorado State game that went to overtime, but Colorado should not be struggling with Colorado State. So that without Travis Hunter, I think they might be in trouble finally.
Well,
Oregon.
I think the talent level is going to catch up with them, and Oregon's a far superior team. I'm telling you right now, Deion Sanders, they should start a course with him being the professor in teaching that kind of being able to be a little mouthy, be a little on edge, be a little whatever, and how to do that. Because, not everybody knows how to do that. He can be a real irritant, but, he gets you irritated and you're ready to pull your hair out, and he's over here doing his thing with his team.
With his sunglasses
on.
on.
And that's not even bothering him.
No, listen, that's half the battle right there if
Yeah,
you can get in their head.
You've got to respect the guy. I mean, as a player and a coach, this guy has really been at the highest levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I never thought Colorado would look this good after 3 games. Number 15, Ole Miss, 3-0 at number 13, Alabama. Wow, kind of hard to believe that. But the student coming home to take on the pupil, Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban. If Alabama gets in a scoring matchup, they're in trouble. But, something in my gut says, like we were talking about with Clemson, Nick Saban's not quite dead yet.
No.
All right, biggest game of the night, 7:30. Number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame on NBC. Ohio State has not played that well to get the season started. Notre Dame with Sam Hartman looks like a completely different team as I've seen in the last few years. So I'm really looking forward to probably having a pizza in that kickoff at 7:30 tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's not going to surprise me one bit if Notre Dame wins the game. It seems to me that the football in the last 10, 15 years is such a quarterback game. And Sam Hartman is by far the best. It's going to be the best quarterback on that field. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they win the game.
Yeah, can you imagine? We were talking, why is the ACC stronger this year with 18th ranked Duke, 20th ranked Miami, 4th ranked Florida State, 17th ranked North Carolina. Oh, Clemson is 23 in one poll, 26 in another. It's because of the quarterback play. Simple as that. And, Jeff, I think you had the most astute comment of all is you need a good quarterback to win.
Quarterback touches the ball every play, and he's either going to make a audible, he's going to change the play, he's got to have communication with his offensive line so they hear the snap and the wide receiver. Everybody's on the – he's got to be a person that can wear a lot of hats and not be a horses you-know-what and trying to implement them.
All right, we will take a look at a game that I know y'all will want one team to lose, but, I mean, it's a big kind of elimination game, if you will, down in Columbia at 7:30 tomorrow night. Mississippi State 2-1 at South Carolina 1-2. Now, I was down at Kennesaw State this past Saturday covering Furman and there, and listen, there was a huge at halftime when South Carolina was leading Georgia 14-3, but it just looks like in the second half, Georgia hit that switch. They move on. But what the hell is going on at Mississippi State? Sometimes you can outthink yourself. I mean, the passing of the Pirate Mike Leach, it was a terrible situation. But he recruited that offense to an air raid type of offense. He's got Will Rogers III, who could be breaking some NCAA records. And what does he do in his first year? He changes him to a pro-style quarterback, and they're doing nothing offensively. Wouldn't you, as a first-year coach, try to build around the talent that's already there?
Yeah, that's a dicey thing. I mean, coaches have their own personality, have their own way of looking at things as to how to be successful. I cannot imagine Danny Ford, coming into a place that's an air raid place and, oh, yeah, we'll keep this air raid going and all that. I mean, it's just not his style. So, coaches, they've got their own personalities, and I don't know this coach they have, but obviously he's a defensive coach. He's more of a traditional guy, 3 yards in a cloud of dust and hard-nosed football, blocking, tackling, all that.
But that's just a hard thing. Mississippi State's one of those kind of in-between programs, if you will, and now they've been conditioned to throw it up and down the field, and now it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they're about to lose their minds.
You talking about an offensive genius that I had the privilege of playing for a long time was Joe Gibbs. He was on the staff at San Diego with the Chargers and Don Coryell, and he and Don Coryell kind of invented air.
The throw it. I mean, Don Coryell.
Air
at
Coryell.
Yeah, he was a coach at San Diego State.
They were throwing the ball like 50, 55 times a game. And after his introduction of Coryell's offense, he got the opportunity to be the head coach of the Redskins, and he took it. And the first 5 games, we're throwing the ball like 45, 50 times a game. We got like rookies and second-year guys starting on the offensive line. We were number 1 in the offense in the league in offense, total offense. When we were also number 1 in total turnovers.
Well,
So Coach Gibbs got away from that Air Coryell thing.
there you go. South Carolina, I don't think any of their fan base would have thought that they could start 1-3, but if they don't win tomorrow night, they got to have some other players besides Spencer Radler step up.
Well, they're averaging 1.8 yards per carry on rushing the ball. I couldn't believe they're down in Athens playing Georgia, and I think they had a 14-3 lead.
Halftime.
And the thing that the commentator said, Shane Beamer just came by and said, we're kicking their butt. And
your mouth shut.
I just thought, my goodness, I mean, do you realize who you're playing here? I mean, these guys can turn that switch on, and they did, and they just totally collapsed South Carolina.
All right, before we head out, and we'll come back and we'll really get into this Clemson-Florida State matchup tomorrow. I got to have a get off my lawn statement. You know, as I get older and, the kids are outside playing, yeah, I can be the guy out there with the Pabst Blue Ribbon and the, shirt yelling, get off my lawn. But, somebody that's really irritated me, going back to the days as being a head coach at Ohio State, is Urban Meyer. Even before that, then go look at what a terrible job he did in 1 year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that showed up last year with them making it to the playoffs. But he was on a show the other day, and he was just railing on Michigan and Georgia about it is just atrocious of what they're playing out of conference, and it should never be allowed. But I'm afraid this is the way college football's going to go. It's really your holier than thou kind of sanctimonious comment. So I went and looked up at who Urban Meyer played out of conference when he was the head coach at the University of Florida. Now, first of all, got to give him credit. He did play Florida State, both home and away, but, oh, yeah, you have to. Outside of that, Urban Meyer played Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Troy twice, Hawaii, the Citadel, and Charleston Southern. So, Urban, if you want to sit here and talk out of both sides of your mouth, go ahead, but sometimes with him, don't go away mad, just go away.
Do you know what these opponents are?
Warm-up games for the Southeastern Conference.
Cupcakes.
Yes, yeah. And we hear sometimes people making fun of the All Cupcakes Conference. Nope, that list right there, that would be cupcakes. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk Florida State and Clemson. But before we do, I want you to check out every week Straight Up from Smoke with Sturg and Price. We get together at Smoke on the Water, kind of hit everything. We're really college football heavy, also Braves heavy this week. But guess what? Ryder Cup next weekend might be one of my favorite things. So we will definitely talk some Ryder Cup next week. Also on Mondays at Tip It Back, it's Straight Up Trivia. 4 rounds before we give way to Monday Night Football, but always a lot of fun there at Tip It Back. Like I said, when we come back, it's Clemson, Florida State, and what we're expecting tomorrow in the Valley.
Hey guys, it's football season. It's officially kicked off, and we want to take a moment and invite you to check out our new website. It's straightupsports.net. What do we have on the homepage? I've taken time to put some links to the week's best articles. Also, we've got a Clemson page, a Furman page, and I have a links page. I've got every college sports program in the upstate linked on one page. Plus, you can find our 2 shows. That's Straight Up with Sturg and the Bostic brothers down in Clemson the night before every Clemson football game, and Straight Up from Smoke. Price Atkinson and I are getting back together every week at Smoke on the Water. Check it out, straightupsports.net.
My name is Shania Gullidge, and I work here at Traditions on the Lake. One of the things that I definitely think makes this place so special is the warm and welcoming environment. There is nothing on the menu that I do not like, and I'm typically a super picky eater, but there is literally not one thing that I wouldn't recommend. I think Traditions is definitely a perfect spot for a family. It is the perfect environment to bring your kids, very warm and inviting. It's just a very beautiful environment all around.
Kirk Fisher is a motorcycle attorney with first responder experience. He protects fellow riders and those in danger, fighting fires and fighting for your rights. Experienced, determined, and dedicated. Iron Horse Motorcycle Lawyers. Look for motorcycles, or Kirk Fisher will be looking for you.
All right, welcome back in. Straight Up with Sturg and the Bostic brothers live at Lakeside Lodge here in Clemson. Here in about 20 minutes, the Dave Landio band from Charleston is going to take over. All right, real quickly, that was interesting. You asked, who is the best football player in Florida State history? Who would you guess?
I have not really stayed in tune with Florida State much over the last 15, 20 years. I think Burt Reynolds played there, didn't he?
He did. And you know,
he's probably the most famous.
Well, anybody that gets married to Lonnie Anderson for that long gets some respect in my book, you know what I mean? But I went with Fred Biletnikoff because, you know, in this day and age, when you have the receiver award named after you, that's pretty special. My second choice might be Warwick Dunn, not just because he was a good player, what he has done in honor of his mom, a former police officer.
Yeah. I would say, you know, they have two guys, Chris Winkie and Charlie Ward won the Heisman Trophy. And Derek Brooks, I think, is probably the best defensive player. And Deion Sanders would have to be there in the conversation too. So they've had some stout dudes.
Yeah, the list would be long. As we mentioned earlier, Jordan Travis in his 6th year at Florida State for the season, 54 completions on 84 attempts, 729 yards. But what you really want to see out of your quarterback, good decision-making, 8 touchdowns versus 1 interception.
Yeah, and the other thing, you know, if you look at Cade and his numbers compared to Travis, they're fairly similar.
Pretty similar.
Cade has thrown the ball quite a bit more than Jordan has. And the thing that is most alarming to me is that Jordan Travis is over 8 yards per attempt, and Cade's about 6 yards. So elite players get it up to about 10 yards per attempt that are really having great years.
Well,
better than average are, you know, 8, 9, and then, you know. So I think Clemson has really got to get the ball downfield and stretch them vertically. You can do that horizontally by your splits and all the guys and all that stuff, but you got to vertically, you know, you got guys 8, 9, 10 yards, the back guys 8, 9, 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. That makes it awfully hard to run the ball.
Now, Jeff, Jordan Travis is the second best running back, if you will. He second in rushing for Florida State, 17 rushes for 96 yards. As we mentioned earlier, I think he's a lot more banged up. You know, your shoulder just doesn't heal completely in 5 or 6 days. You know, the one good thing, they'll shoot him up and say, go out there and play. But here is a name that Clemson fans want to remember. Tate Rodemaker. Why? Because he's the backup quarterback. If you see him out there, that means Jordan Travis has likely been knocked out of the game, and you're in a lot better shape.
And trust me, as players, the coaches tell all their players the condition of the other team. And I'm sure they've been talking about this quarterback's shoulder, and not that they're going to cheap shot him or anything, but if you get a chance to put him on the ground hard, take your chance.
Yeah, play to the edge of the whistle, but not any further. And we'll get into that later. Running back Trey Benson leads the Seminoles, 35 rushes, 194 yards. That's 5.5 yards per attempt, and 4 touchdowns. We mentioned Jordan Travis, the second rusher, but there's a third, Lawrence Tuafili, 17 rushes for 85 yards. Again, that 5-yard per carry average. And the interior offensive line of Florida State, they're big and they're old.
Yeah, I think they got 2 tackles that are freshmen, or one's a freshman and one's a young guy. But it is what it is. I mean, you got teams that got good players, and we got good players, and it's just going to be a better scheme. Who wants it more? Who's willing to The main thing is just keep getting up. You get knocked down, get up, keep getting up, and keep getting up, and keep playing hard, and make it happen. That you can't quit.
Yeah, and the one thing, again, at quarterback, Jordan Travis will probably be a little bit more calm and collected, but when it comes to Cade Klubnik, if things start to break down, turn it upfield and take the loss. Don't try to do some things that you have done earlier this year. Sometimes living to play another play is all you can ask for.
Absolutely, and there's no sin in punting the ball, because your goal is to punt the ball, score a touchdown, make points, and kick it to where they got to go over 80 yards and keep that field position in your favor. And it's really hard to go 80, 90 yards, because you got to put together 7, 8, 10, 12, competent plays. And these young kids, they just can't seem to put all that stuff together. Now, if you start giving guys short fields, you give them big home run plays, it's going to be a long day.
All right, when it comes to their defense, Florida State, it's been pretty tough on opposing quarterbacks. The completion ratio has been about 50%. They've only given up 2 touchdowns, but defensively, they've given up nearly 120 yards rushing a game so far. So I think that's one place with Will Shipley and Phil Maffa, you might see Clemson try to set that up.
That's what I would look at. I like statistics because they don't lie. And if you're able to run the ball, control the clock, control your time of possession, what you'd probably love to see by the end of the game of 60 minutes of possession, you got 35 to 40 minutes, and the other team's got 15 to 20.
Right, and that also helps
and
you.
that means probably that defense you're played against kind of ran out of gas the fourth quarter.
Exactly. For the season, they've beaten LSU. Impressive win. When LSU got tired in the second half, everything sort of started going Florida State's way. They routed Southern Miss, and then a very close game at Boston College. Now, for Clemson, everybody's been talking about Cade, and he's missing this and missing that. When you look at this offense, they're nearly completing 70% of their passes. You're talking about, 8 touchdowns versus 2 turnovers for Cade Klubnik. But again, tomorrow you really got to make sure Will Shipley and Phil Maffa get their carries, get their yardage, because if you're making that defense think about the run, then Cade Klubnik can throw the ball better, can get to the edge better, and hopefully make better decisions.
Well, they've got that 68% completion rating. The problem is, if I were back there quarterback, and I could probably throw it 90%, but all I'd be doing is just pitching it to a running back 2 yards in front of me, and we'd get negative yardage, and they'd say, okay, Joe, he's 19 for 20 for minus 42 yards. So that's not very competent. It's not a very good way to go about it. So we got to start getting downfield. And the more you get downfield and you can maintain that completion percentage, because it gets a little bit it gets a little skewed when you're just throwing these little dump passes. You say, oh, we're completing 68% of our passes. Well, they're only 3-yard passes.
Well, you know, statistically, maybe it's starting to look like the wide receiver core is coming around. Bo Collins leads Clemson, 13 catches, 197 yards, and a touchdown. Antonio Williams has kind of been the playmaker for a touchdown, 15 catches, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I am glad to see Tyler Brown, a freshman. He's stepping up, 7 catches, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then at some point, Adam Randall has to make a play.
Yes, he does. And this I was very impressed with Tyler Brown. I didn't know number 6. I remember number 6. He made a heck of a touchdown catch. But most of if you look at all those guys, they're not big averages per catch. You know, we got Bo Collins. He had that one long run, but you know he's at like 13, 14 yards a catch. Antonio Williams is down below 10 yards a catch, and this Tyler Brown's around 11. And our tight end Jay Breenstool is he's like 6 yards.
Yeah,
and so we got to get it downfield more.
Breenstool needs to have a big game tomorrow, and you know there is a freshman starting to come on the scene a little bit. He's a legacy in his own right, and that's Patrick Sapp's son. He caught a touchdown pass this past week and is starting to get some playing time as a true freshman.
And that Stiletto guy, he's another little, you know, kind of a cheap man's Hunter Renfro, and he may be a full-blown Hunter Renfro in time, but you know we need that little quick, you know, slot guy that you know can make people miss.
Well, you did lose Turner. He will be out for the rest of the season. So, again, time for another one to
you
step
know, when
up.
he saw him got hurt, man, he grabbed he grabbed his leg, and I mean, you knew something wasn't good.
When it happens that fast.
Yes.
And you know, I saw a kid last week at Kennesaw State. He blew his knee out like not 10 yards away from him. You could hear the screaming and yelling involved, you know, and you knew right then this wasn't a sprained ankle that he was going to be back from in 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, as we close up, what are a couple things Jeff Bostic, the former Washington Redskins center, 3 Super Bowl championships, 4 trips. What's something Jeff Bostic, or a couple things Jeff's looking for out of the Clemson Tigers against Florida State tomorrow?
I want to see their defense really stick it to Florida State. I want to see improvement at the quarterback position, along with the offensive line's improvement. I want this team to be special on special teams. And last but not least, great coaching from the sideline.
All right. You know, that's a recipe for a good afternoon. Joe Bostic, the former St. Louis and Phoenix Cardinal, you know, a couple of things that you'll be watching tomorrow in a game that's coming up just, 15 hours away.
Yeah, well, it's everybody do their job. You know, the guys, the trainers, the managers, they're going to do their job. The guy that drives the bus, he's going to do his job. You know, the people that serve the food and all this stuff, they're going to do their job. The coaches, do your job. The players, do your job. You don't have to do more than what your job is. If you're a center, you know, snap the ball, get that guy, you know, that's ahead of you and when your assignment. And make good decisions. You know, the crowd. I mean, that's another one. What's the one thing the crowd can do?
Get loud,
make a lot of noise, get disruptive. You know, make Death Valley really, really, really Death Valley. We've gone through this winning thing over the last 6, 8, 10 years, and I think the Clemson fan base has gotten a little spoiled. And right now we need a comeback win, a comeback effort by our crowd, the players. You know, get people excited and you know show people let Florida State know, hey, you guys may pass us one day, but it ain't going to be this year.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. When I went off to school at the University of Alabama, it was kind of coming out of the Bear Bryant era. You would go to a football game, and it's like the fans would sit there, and the football team had to earn their support, you know,
Right.
clapping and praise. Clemson at the time was Danny Ford and everything going on. Now I'd say that Clemson fan base is almost like the old Alabama one the day where, do something to earn my applause.
Yeah,
well,
we're
listen.
not going to the playoffs. It's been a bad year.
Right.
And that's
So
that's not the case.
You only got 4 more chances this year to come out and see Clemson play in Clemson. It's homecoming in a couple of weeks, and you don't get another home game till November. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and make it a hell of a day.
And I think we've won 7 of the last ACC tournament, games to be the ACC champs. We lose this game tomorrow. We're at 0-2. I'm sure there's a mathematical way to get back in that championship game somehow or another. But boy, you are dependent on a lot of people, a lot of things happening out of your control. And my personal opinion, a football player, the last thing you want to do is put control in other people that you don't even know to help you get into a championship game.
All right, y'all hit on my topics. Death Valley, be packed and loud. The defense, get after Travis Rudolph. No killer mistakes by Cade. And you know what?
It's Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis, yep. You know what? Make a field goal and make it look easy. Wow, that'd be some confidence for the fans right there. You don't realize how much you miss a place kicker until he's gone, and Clemson's missing.
And they say this guy's a heck of a kicker, and said he can kick it a mile.
It's all in the head.
He's got the yips, the old Goff comment. But I hope in the next whatever amount of time he gets rid of the yips.
He might not be kicking tomorrow. They brought in a kid that has been with the program 4 years who was down in Charleston taking some online classes, about to move to New York to take his first job. He will likely be lining up at place kicker tomorrow. Outside of that, we need a big game from Mitchell Mays as he steps in for right guard Walker Parks. Walker Parks is out. And, of course, Mitchell Mays did start 4 games last week, but what it does is with Parks being out, kind of cuts down on that depth. You really only have 3 offensive linemen after that.
Yeah.
All right, we want to thank everybody. First of all, Cliff and Beverly Witherspoon, Red Arrow Entertainment. They do an absolutely fantastic job of getting us up and on the air and to breaking down. And, of course, Cliff is the webmaster when it comes to straightupsports.net. So look them up, check them out. Of course, Lakeside Lodge, it gets no better than this. Don't forget, next weekend we have the Hazmatics from Atlanta. Just because Clemson's going to be up at Syracuse doesn't mean we're not going to have a good time here at Lakeside Lodge. So, for my good friends, 2 legends, Joe Bostic, Jeff Bostic, this is Sturg. I say goodbye, and how do you like to end it?
All I can say, let's get the whole Tiger Nation. Let's come together tomorrow, and let's go Tigers, and let's get a win.
We got one word: win.